So expectations, what are you expecting from you in this event? Let's start with candidates. So check in using your SAMI app. And if you cannot do that, there will be a link in the chat. In your Zoom name, rename it according to your first name and then dash, then your position. At all times during the entire event, you should be mute unless, of course, you're speaking or if you have a question to ask. The same goes for the camera. It should be off unless you're speaking. It's your turn to speak or you have any other question or concern. For the attendees, same rules. Checking using your Asami app, you should be mute and your camera should be off unless you're speaking or you have a question or concern. And if someone is already speaking, try not to interrupt the person. Instead, just put the question in the chat and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Thank you. Next slide.
So here is the current summary of tonight's debates, and these are all the order in which all of the positions for the board of directors will be presenting. And the debates are going to proceed position by position. And at the end, the audience will also have the opportunity to ask the candidates any questions they'd like to ask if given the opportunity, depending on time.
So going over some event roles, today this event will be hosted by the Spartan Daily. Our timekeeper is Aryan Sharma. Our candidate moderator is Brenda Lee. And our chat moderator is Let Know. And for any technical support, Samantha Kimbao will be taking over that role.
As a reminder, you will have 1 minute for your opening statement, 90 seconds to answer each question asked, 30 seconds for rebuttals, and 45 seconds for any questions asked from the audience, questions gathered from Instagram. Any questions from the audience are encouraged, and if time allows, will be asked at the end.
All right, so it's going to be time for debates. So the debates allow voters to hear what you have to say on important issues to make informed decisions. So during this time, we ask you to kindly please turn off your microphones and cameras until it is your turn to speak. Take a deep breath and be excited. We wish you the best.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Lazargo. I'm the executive editor of the Spartan Daily. I will be the one reading the questions for all of you candidates to answer. Sorry about the glitchy background, by the way, don't know what's happening. But I wanted to thank everybody involved in the elections, as well as AS and the current candidates for having me, and my colleagues who will be reporting on the event coverage for Wednesday's issue. Without further ado, we will get started. I believe those of you who will be answering questions today are aware of the format of the questions and the order that we're going to be going in. So we're going to start with Director of Communications. So just to clarify, we'll go through one by one for the different positions. Before you both answer, or whoever is running for certain positions answers the first question, we will begin with an opening statement. So I would like to pass it off to those who are running for Director of Communications. We'll start with Colin for his opening statement.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, my name is Colin Foley. I'm a second year here at San Jose State right now, and I'm currently majoring in business, general business concentration, but I'm looking to move to marketing. And as far as Director of Communications goes, I actually had interest in this position as of last year. However, just due to my scheduling and lack of research, I wasn't able to fully commit to the position before some of the deadlines occurred that prevented me from running in the past. But I look forward to running this year, and I have high aspirations for changing the school for the better.
Awesome. Thank you, Colin. We'll pass it off to Gerard Pablo's opening statement.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so my name's Gerard Pablo, and I'm a third year majoring in public relations and minoring in business. And the reason I'm running for this role is because I believe that this role is very important to the students at Sjsu, because it not only requires speaking to them, but it also requires speaking on behalf of them, and also ensuring that you have the relationship that you want with the university. And I believe that with over like 30,000 students here on campus, it's important that the director of communications is open and transparent with the students and is a man of the people. And as a leader on campus and in my own organizations, I believe that I can bridge the communication gap between the administration and the students. Especially during a time of virtual learning right now, it's important that we have a seamless flow of information between the school and the students. With that being said, I'm really excited to possibly make a change in the campus, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you both. So I will have one question in which you both will answer. I will start with Gerard. How do you plan to increase awareness of AS resources to establish connections within the campus and surrounding community?
Yeah, so given the circumstances with the pandemic and classes being all virtual, I think it's very important to utilize the power of social media. So accounts like Twitter, the Instagram, and even the Sami app are some of the communication ways that I'd like to communicate with the students. And when posting content on these platforms, I'd like to post images and videos instead of posting the traditional text, just because people like simplicity and don't want to work too hard to find things. I know that myself because I'm a student here in Sjsu, and yeah, I want to have students engage with it, and instead of just one-way communication, it's a two-way communication. And on top of that, I think the biggest issue in the AS communications is the lack of engagement and participation within the social media accounts. And so one way to solve, I've thought to solve this issue is to create incentives to follow the AS accounts by, I was thinking, through a drawing system, contacting the RSO on campus and following and showing them the social media accounts, and so that they can also share it with their members. And this will also require working closely with the co-curricular affairs. And yeah, and then on top of that, I'd also like to create a master calendar for all students to see for all ongoing events on campus, and have it synced with the social media. I'd also like to collaborate with the RSO office to see how we can work to inform the students of the student body of what's available to them. So things like resources that the student organizations, how we can help fund them, and maybe some of the leadership conferences that are available on campus, and also how AS can help cover expenses. On top of that, I'd also like to broaden the conversation with what the campus also has to offer in terms of resources. And yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I'd like to pass off that same question to Colin. And Colin, I'll repeat the question for you. Feel free to start as soon as I finish. How do you plan to increase awareness of AS resources to establish connections within the campus and surrounding community?
Yeah, awesome. So I would also actually take approach by pushing for heightened social media publications, and not just, influencing what is posted on the accounts, but actually engaging people with the accounts through promotions or whatnot. So we can see just by the amount of students that attend the university, we have approximately 30,000 people versus the amount of people that follow the Associated Students Instagram. There's a massive discrepancy. I believe the Associated Students Instagram has less than 5,000 followers. And also in addition to that, many of the followers likely are not even students at San Jose State. Maybe some could potentially be alumni or just people who are not affiliated with San Jose State whatsoever. So I believe that, you know, with our generation and the students coming in, they're very accustomed to getting their news and such from social media. So I feel like this is crucial in terms of providing information to the student body, whether that's, you know, information about clubs, different organizations, or offers that associated students can make to the student body that could help benefit them and ensure their success here at San Jose State. And then if the restrictions as far as COVID go were to be lifted, I would also outreach to many of the clubs, organizations, and get their input to most effectively communicate what they want.
All right, now we have individual questions for you both. I will go back to you, Colin, and ask you this question. Gerard, if you'd like to have a rebuttal after he answers the question, please let me know. Colin, you mentioned you believe this position should have full transparency with the student body. What kind of transparency do you believe this position must have with the Spartan community in order to enhance our experiences?
So I feel like the transparency that I would like to see from the position, mainly when I was reading through different committees that the Director of Communications sits on, such as the Spartan Community Fund Committee, as well as the Outstanding Professor Award Committee. A lot of students don't even know, or they're not aware of these committees and the impact that the Director of Communications has when it comes to these committees and the decisions that they have to make. So I should definitely believe that transparency is crucial in this aspect when it comes down to these committees and the influence that the student body has on them. And I just essentially want to be like a bridge almost for the student body to be able to understand what these committees are for and how they can represent themselves, or they can have their input on the decisions that are made within them.
Cool. Gerard, do you have a rebuttal to that?
No, I'm good, actually. Thank you.
All right, I will begin with your question. As a public relations major, some might argue you've learned how to make undesirable situations look better. How do you gain the trust from students on the information you provide when there's a difficult topic?
Yeah, so in some people's minds, a lot of people think that public relations people make corporations look good. But in reality, we try to build trust within our community by being transparent. One reason transparency in PR is taking the center stage is because of social media. It's now easier for users to hold brands accountable for their actions. PR people are actually storytellers. And recently in the PR industry, they've made a universal idea of transparency and honest communications to try and attempt to shift that stereotype. And if you actually look at the Chartered Institute of Public Relations website, and if you browse through the About Me pages, first two things that you'll find under their values are honesty and integrity. Now, bad news is inevitable, and it happens to everybody and every organization. That's why it's important to build trust through transparency. And PR helps you to build mutually beneficial relationships where consumer actually have a relationship with it, and people who are more likely to trust someone that they have built a relationship with. And public relations allows you to build an organic audience that is genuinely interested in the value. And
Colin, would you like to have time for rebuttal?
No, I think it's fine.
Awesome. Thank you both. I will now move on to Vice President, and we have Nina Chuang. By the way, when I'm going through all of these, if I do pronounce your name wrong, please feel free to correct me. I think that's important that all of us know your name, so please let us know. I will start with your first question, Nina, if you're ready.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So the first question, one of the committees the Vice President serves on is the Professional Standards Committee, which oversees faculty affairs. How do you plan on making the information covered by that committee more accessible to students and bridge the gap between faculty and students?
Quick question, will I have time for an opening statement before I begin questions?
Yes, I totally forgot. Please feel free to do your opening statement right now.
Thank you. Hello, Spartans. My name is Nina Chong. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm honored to be running to be your Associate Students Vice President and Chair. I'm a Bay Area native and a third-year undergraduate pursuing nutritional science with a concentration in dietetics. I value empowerment, student advocacy, and representation. Whether it be media content creation for events, campus involvement, or coordinating service events of my own, I'm prepared to help better our campus community. This year, I had the privilege of serving as your Director of Student Resource Affairs. This position has allowed me to chair the Campus Life Affairs Committee and serve on as a senator on the Sjsu Academic Senate. These positions have allowed me to learn the importance of amplifying community voices and fostering a positive campus experience. If elected, I will work towards increasing transparency of associate students and building a strong, united circle of compassionate student leaders to represent our community of 35,000 Spartans.
Thank you, Nina. I'm going to repeat the question for all guests just as a refresher. So I ask it again. One of the committees the Vice President serves on is the Professional Standards Committee, which oversees faculty affairs. How do you plan on making the information covered by that committee more accessible to students and bridge the gap between faculty and students?
Yes, so my approach to this would not be reinventing the wheel, but turning the axles that are already turning. I would work with current directors, not current, but the directors within the board to ensure that communication is good, such as working with academic affairs, who serves on a committee that is in charge of coffee with the professor, working with student resource affairs, who works with the Student Success Committee, working with Student Rights and Responsibilities, who works with the Office of Student Conduct and Ethical Development, and also working with the Director of Communications to make sure that meetings, committees, and events that try to bridge this gap are marketed well to students, working with the Board of Directors to make sure I also have detailed board reports during Board of Director meetings and communicating with the board frequently.
Thank you, Nina. I have your second question here. As the outgoing Director of Student Resource Affairs, you have the privilege of serving as a senator on the Academic Senate. With such a large campus of more than 35,000, how do you plan on representing the student body in that meeting?
So it is the duty of each board member to do their due diligence in representing the student body, but it's only a small portion of the board that sits on the Academic Senate. One of the ways that I make sure that each board member that sits on Academic Senate is properly representing students is making sure that we're all communicating frequently with one another and taking the students' opinion and input that they give to us in the spaces that we hold and putting that input back into the spaces that we're responsible for. I'll also make sure the conversations held in Academic Senate meetings are also properly communicated and relayed during Board of Director meetings.
All right, thank you, Nina. With that, we are going to move on to Director of Student Rights and Responsibilities. We have Sharanya Kumar with her opening statement.
All right, hi everyone. Hi Spartans. My name is Sharanya. I'm a second year here at SJSU, majoring in political science and minoring in computer science and economics. So I'm here to run for the Director of Student Rights position because I want to be a proponent for student advocacy. This is one of my main values, and I really want to be somebody who supports this. And I believe this starts with a thorough understanding of student rights. And I hope as a candidate and hopefully in this position, I would be able to further educate students on their rights and therefore build a platform for further advocacy. I want to be an approachable and trustworthy ear to all issues that students face here on campus. And I really want to expose the inequalities faced. And over the past year, we've seen a lot of these inequalities exposed and now addressed. And I want to expand this addressing of these issues to all marginalized communities here at SJSU. I want to be someone who not only will hear the student body's issues, but heed them and rectify them.
Perfect timing. I will move into your first question then. How are you going to make yourself available to hear student grievances and share them with the rest of the board?
Okay, so one of the ways which I really think would help hear student grievances is by utilizing stuff we've learned over the pandemic. And one of the things we've learned is virtual communication. And so I believe that virtual communication does build a stronger platform to reach a lot more students and a lot more people, and therefore hear a lot more of the prevalent grievances on campus. And I will do this by implementing a QR code system where we place flyers all over campus throughout all the buildings, which have QR codes to forms, which allow students to anonymously or creditedly fill out a grievance form, which will therefore collect all these grievances and allow us to analyze and see which ones are the most important to the student body at the time and therefore address them. And I will hope to further bring this up to the board of directors and address it with them to get these issues handled and fixed.
All right, thank you. Your second question. Your platform states that you understand the diversity of our student body and that you have a passion for student advocacy. How do you plan on advocating for more rights to underrepresented student groups?
So I believe I can do this in a three-step program or three-step plan. And so this starts with research, and this can begin with the first step, as I stated in the previous question answer. I would love to do research by further understanding what the student body really wants to change. And this can also expand to discussing any issues further with the leaders of RSOs or recognized student organizations who represent these minorities or marginalized populations, and therefore will further understand these issues and who's affected by them and how they're affected. The second step would be planning. And so this is a major step because this is what will allow us to get to the third step and further implement this in the best way possible. And the way I'm going to plan this out is hopefully by meeting with the Director of Legislative Affairs and the Lobby Core Committee in order to put out legislation and resolutions that further address these issues and push our campus community and staff to further address these issues. And I also want to work with programs that from other campuses and other universities in order to see how they're addressing these issues in ways to further benefit our student community. And finally, I would like to implement these issues by discussing this with campus officials in order to put all of these plans into motion and therefore address these marginalized communities and make sure that these three steps of researching, planning, and implementing can promote advocacy for these communities at SJSU.
All right, thank you for the answer. We are going to now jump into Director of Student Resource Affairs, and we will hear Jalen Allen's opening statement.
Hey everyone, my name is Jalen Allen. I'm a second year here at San Jose State, majoring in marketing with a minor in public administration and public policy. At SJSU so far, I was an orientation leader my first year, so over this past summer. I've also been a part of AS as a student at large since my freshman year. I sat on the programming board last year, and I had an amazing opportunity to sit on the Campus Life Affairs Committee this year. And I also was able to sit on the Academic Senate this year as a student at large for the Student Fairness Committee. So I'm going to use all of these resources that I've learned and grown with and go and apply all of those to the position that I'm currently running for, which is Director of Student Resource Affairs, and have a better source of transparency and helping students be successful coming in from the online university, going back into this in-person or hybrid, whatever the university is going with that and what that is going to look like.
Awesome. With that, I'm going to move into your first question. Two of the duties of this position are serving in the Academic Senate meetings as a senator and also being the chair of the AS Campus Life Affairs Committee. At a school where many students commute or have never been exposed to campus life at all because of the pandemic, how will you use those duties to advocate for crucial resources right now?
Thank you. So with that question, we have a lot of different types of students coming back onto campus this year. So with that, moving into in-person, we have the first group of students, obviously our first-time freshmen and our transfer students coming in from either local universities or universities throughout the country. And then we also have some students that we definitely need to keep an eye out for. For example, our second year is next year. So the freshman students currently this year, they've never been exposed to campus yet. So they're probably very interested and concerned about those resources that they have as students and what they pay for and what their money goes into. We also have seniors that are coming back that haven't been there since their junior year. And we have juniors that are coming back that have only been here their first year and haven't even had a full year of experience left. So we have a lot of students to worry about this year when it comes to resources and being successful on campus. To ensure that all these students have their resources, I plan to, if elected, I would host different workshops to provide these students with the resources to be successful, how to go through those resources, who to reach out to find those resources, and then come up with some sort of a resource tour to provide all the students to be successful for any type of student, no matter what it is, no matter what they are, to be successful. And so that would look like is going around campus, filming different things, letting people know about different areas of resources such as CAPS, different student success centers and things like EOP and things like that.
All right, I'll move into your second question, Jalen. One of your goals is the creation of a web series that will provide students with the tools for transferring back to in-person classes. What are the necessary steps you must take to get this done?
I think the first necessary step, and we actually have also just received information from President Mary Papazian that graduation is going to look somewhat in person. So that's like a good way to, if elected, to step in and start that web series, but that starts with reaching out to different campus organizations, different faculty and advisors across campus, and showing what resources each one of those organizations or faculty advisors is going to provide for students, and then coming up with a video to show students, okay, this is what's happening now. So we are going to be, let's say, for instance, it's 50-50. You're going to be in person on these days, but you're going to be online these days. Have that transparency between us and the university with students so that they can understand what their next year is going to look like, because it's, like I said, it's very confusing for a lot of different students because we have so many students that we're going to have to benefit this year, especially when it comes to student resources. And they're going to really need these resources to be successful because the transition from online to in-person is going to be a little bit harder because, like I said, we have freshmen who've never been here. We have seniors that have never been here, and a lot of juniors that have only been here their first year. And so that's getting them into their upper divisions, getting freshmen into their correct courses, and understanding that, there are resources here for you on campus. And the web series would be geared towards giving all of the students their resources. So they're well aware of what is going on campus and what Sjsu, AS, or any campus organization or different student success centers can do to provide those students for help.
Thank you, Jalen. With that, we're going to move into Director of Legislative Affairs, where we will hear Caden Skywalker's opening statement.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Caden Skywalker, and I'm running for Director of Legislative Affairs. I'm a third-year political science major, and I'm minoring in pre-law. As of late, the word of the last year has been unprecedented. However, this shouldn't only be used in reference to COVID, but to political events of late. You see, as someone familiar with laws and politics, and as a student of color, as a Black student specifically, I cannot ignore how precedent has been used as reason enough to continue the disenfranchisement of students of color, of people of color, and the violence of people of color as well. But now times have changed. The instrumentalities to create change are in the hands of people of color, are in the hands of people who want to see change, are in the hands of people who simply want to see their government do better. And with that known, I want to simply be able to give the students the opportunity, the knowledge that they can adequately create and enact change. And that would be my goal.
All right, Caden, we're going to move into question 1. What important student matters do you believe should be addressed in terms of legislation, especially considering the racial, economic, and cultural disparities many students experience?
Absolutely, and this is a great question, especially when it comes to politics and legislation. So what we always need to keep in mind is the systemic issues of what cause poverty and how it can act on itself centripetally. So in addressing that, COVID has exacerbated those issues. So we need to look at ways to address those issues, obviously. Legislation like Assembly Bill 14, the Internet for All Act, Assembly Bill 99, the longitudinal data system, things like this give the support that students who are typically not able to have those different tools at just offhand that they would need to adequately participate in school, to adequately succeed in school, which is exactly our point. On top of that, obviously fixing financial aid to represent the true cost of attendance of college is always a main thing that stays in my mind. It's always a goal of mine to continue to work for.
All right, question 2. This is your second term running for this position. What were you unable to accomplish in the 2020 to 2021 term, and how can you ensure you'll achieve it this time around? Do you have any new goals for the upcoming year?
What was I unable to accomplish? Well, I think the biggest thing that I learned running in this position was to effectively use your first semester in office. While I believe that I did quite a lot, especially it being an election semester, I would have loved to have more student at larges to allow me to look and do different things at the time. So I think going into this next year, my main goal is getting those positions filled far and ahead in advance, so I can adequately address all the different issues on the state, federal, and local side. Additionally, I think what we need to look at is maintaining just a culture of civic participation within our students. Although we're not voting for a president this year, there are lots of primaries coming up. There's still local elections coming up. There's still local amendments, et cetera, coming up. And students need to be aware of this. And like I said, fully utilize their civic engagement, because we make up a huge voting bloc, not only just as the students at large, but just in San Jose in general.
Thank you, Cadence, for your answers. We will move into Director of Internal Affairs. And we have Jalen, Sandoval, Rios with their opening statement.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jalen Sandoval Rios. I'm currently a first year majoring in Management Information Systems. Although it is my first year, I have been involved in different leadership opportunities around campus, and I want to take that into my role and into my position. I want to be able to create a safe environment through the use of my position and through the use of the bylaws. Running for Director of Internal Affairs, I want to make sure that I'm inclusive and serve the community with my position.
Awesome. Question 1. The AS Internal Affairs Committee is charged with maintaining accurate copies of governing documents, and one of the duties of this position is proposing changes to those bylaws. How will you increase awareness about the bylaws when many students are unaware of what is within the Constitution?
For me, how I would increase awareness of the bylaws is connecting with the students. A way to connect with the students is simply through communication. Communication is key when it comes to awareness, whether that's communication through meetings, through conversations, emails, or even newsletters. Connecting with the students is essential. There are different wants and needs in the community, and I want to make sure everyone feels heard and listened to. And that's how I would increase awareness.
Question 2. Having gone through these elections before, do you have some suggestions on how to improve them for next year?
As a first year student, I kind of didn't really know what to expect in the election. Through the organization of the election, it was kind of easy for me to flow through the election. But one thing I would change, or to not change but improve, is the interaction of students and through the use of interactive activities.
Okay, thank you so much, Jalen. We are going to move into Director of Sustainability. We have Marco Icha Andia with their opening statement.
Hi everyone, hello lovely people. My name is Marco Echindia. My pronouns are he, him, and they, and I am a transfer student from Merritt College and majoring in psychology with a minor in environmental science. I actually grew up on the West Coast in New York, and shortly after moving to California, I noticed that I started to be more conscientious in terms of how we live in our regard, in terms to our environment. It was in hand with that I started educating myself more a bit environmentally and adopting minimalistic lifestyles and otherwise green initiative habits into my life. And just recently I've tried to apply that to a campus-wide scale, as you can see. It is the hopes that I would make the longstanding resources of this office more readily available to the students, and just overall make sure that we provide as many opportunities for students to realize what's going on, how it impacts us, and yeah, just that. I'll yield the rest of my time.
All right, thanks, Marco. We're going to move into question 1. The looming threat of climate change and other detrimental environmental issues are of great concern to many students, with some research showing we will see many negative side effects in our lifetime. How will you get both students and SJSU administration to care about sustainability?
Thank you for addressing that, because that is a very large challenge. One of the reasons I believe that we as human beings have had difficulty transitioning from non-sustainable practices is because for centuries we've lived and operated on the basis that we deprive all of our environment of its resources and leave basically nothing sustainable afterwards. I understand that it's difficult and a lot to ask people, especially students, trying to figure out their highest quality of life to simply turn away from the lifestyles that they've lived their entire life, as well as our administration. From their water consumption to the reliance on gas-powered vehicle transportation, as well as to the choices they make as consumers. Regardless of all that, it all begins with how informed you are and finding what best suits you while adhering to the world we inhabit. With that being said, I first have to get students as well as our administration to care. Some of the ways I plan to nurture that care is establishing monthly forums, streams, podcasts, discussion panels, presentations, interactive workshops, and rallies on campus. I plan to work closely with the Office of Sustainability, the Cesar Chavez Community Action Center, and the Community Garden to bring about those plans and just to uphold the highest potential we have through opportunities. Hope to motivate our community to take up minimalistic as well as sustainable lifestyle habits and open them to a world of ethically sourced products that otherwise might have been unknown to them. And I don't plan on recommending anything that I or someone I know has not personally used.
Awesome. Question 2. Aside from what the university already has in place to mitigate environmental issues, how can AS be at the forefront of sustainability initiatives at SJSU?
Well, if I were to be elected, it is under one of my duties to serve as a member of the AS Lobby Corps. And I see that as a great opportunity. One, because it's been one of my goals since campaigning to lobby that all CSU endowment boards ethically divest from fossil fuels and big oil. I also would strive for more transparency for the university and its students in terms of how we discard our trash and what facilities we use, as an example. It also comes down to me actively informing not only the AS board, but our community in, let's say, current events that impact people of color communities, lower income communities, because more often than not, environmental issues are always going to impact them first and foremost. I believe 66% of low income and indigenous communities are always the first ones impacted by lower air quality and oil spills. So it was through that I hope to inform AS specifically so that we can make the best decisions we can with the budget that we're allowed to oversee, as well as our own personal actions.
All right, thank you, Marco. We will move into the position of controller. We have 4 candidates, so we will begin with the opening statement of Maritza Molina.
Hi everyone, my name is Maritza Molina and I'm a first-generation student running for the position of controller. I'm in my 4th year here at San Jose State and I'm a hospitality, tourism, and event management student. I've been a student assistant at the AS General Services Center since 2017. And being a part of AS has allowed me to engage with students and recognize student organizations and gain insight into their experiences. I am ready to take the next step in supporting my peers at a higher level. And as controller, I hope to enhance the students and the community of SJSU and their experience.
Thank you. We are going to move on into Andres Murillo's opening statement.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Andres Murillo and I'm a second-year international business major with a minor in computer science. I have the honor of being part of the Residence Hall Association, also known as RHA, where I specifically served as Campus Village C's treasurer, and I'm currently RHA's Vice President of Administration and Finance. I'm also a member of the National Hall Honorary and the Financial Management Association. And I'm running for this position because I want to continue to pursue my interest in finance and administration, as well as continue advocating for and serving the SJSU community.
Thank you. Now we have Ben Swan with his opening statement.
Hello, everyone. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to learn more about our student government. My name is Ben Svan, and I'm currently a fourth-year student pursuing a degree in statistics with a minor in computer science. For the last 2 years, I've had the privilege to serve on our Associate Students Finance Committee. I held responsibility for distributing $250,000 to over 400 student organizations. By the start of the next academic year, I hope that our students and organizations will be able to return to campus and make the most out of the funds that we provide. Additionally, I also served on the AS Programming Committee, where we organized and executed programs that sparked a desire in students to get involved with the campus community. San Jose State University has impacted my life in so many ways, and my mission is to give back. I hope to count on your vote and be elected controller for the upcoming year so I can continue to enhance your student experience at San Jose State University.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Salmia Trivedi's opening statement.
Hey Spartans, my name is Samia Trivedi and I'm a third-year majoring in software engineering. I'm running to be our next AS controller. Having been involved with various organizations on campus since my freshman year, I understand the basic needs of students from all walks of life. If elected, I promise to give every voice equal representation on campus and lead the school to a new era of prosperity. Because in the end, it's you who matter and your opinion which matters. So like Michael Scott once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So don't miss the shot and vote for me.
All right, so we have one question that you will all answer. I will start with you, Samia, and if the other candidates would like me to repeat the question, please let me know and I will be able to do so. Otherwise, I will just move right into the next candidate. So Samia, there is an allocation of $250,000 for student organizations to request funds in the AS budget. How do you plan on promoting student org funding to the student body?
Thank you for the question. Student body on campus is important to enhance the college experience. Student government helps develop leadership qualities within students. Students take active participation in the process of organizing and carrying out various activities and projects. Taking into account the fact that student government is the voice of students, it becomes much simpler for a student to share their thoughts, ideas, and concerns with the college or university community. As a whole, the student body represents and advocates for all students of San Jose State University, and thus is an integral part of on-campus organization. I believe that the organization is also important in the sense that they prepare students for the world after college, and these organizations should have sufficient funds to help better the student experience on campus. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move into Ben's with the same question.
Right, so I think this is a really important question and it's the bulk of what the head of finance committee has to do. So over the last few years of reviewing and analyzing our budget, I noticed a serious recurring problem. Every year, tens of thousands of dollars are unused and then stored into our university's reserves. As of right now, we have over $11 million just sitting there. And so the monies collected from AS fees were intended to go back to our students. Instead, I see students graduating and then never seeing all of their fees being used. I believe in our student organizations to create, organize, and facilitate programs that spark the desire in our students to get involved with the campus community. And this is my solution. As the controller and the head of the AS Finance Committee, I wish to maintain a collaborative and supportive relationship with the AS Marketing Department in order to raise awareness of the funds that we provide. Student organizations should not have to be shy nor reserved when it comes to funding requests. That's all.
All right, thank you. And I will circle back to Maritza with the same question.
So the use of social media is more prevalent now more than ever. And as controller, I'd want to collaborate with the Director of Communications and the AS Marketing Department to further enhance our community outreach in promoting AS funding. Additionally, I'd like to collaborate with other campus departments, such as creating an AS funding workshop, aside from the mandatory training required to receive or to apply for AS funding, in partnership with student involvement to inform students of the opportunities available through AS funding. This encourages students to take advantage of our resources. And then furthermore, I'd want to feature AS funded recognized student organizations and students on our social media outlets. For example, we can post recognized student organizations in their AS funded apparel. And then this could be more appealing to the student body, and that way it gives everybody a visual of what you can possibly get through AS funding. And as controller, I'd want to survey the students on their AS funding experience to gain feedback to further enhance our program.
All right, thank you all for that question. We're going to move into individual questions, and Maritza, I'll go back to you actually. So your question, you have previously helped implement and manage the AS Affordable Textbook Program, which grants students a $200 voucher for books and school supplies in your work with AS General Services. What are other resources you'd like to see implemented at SJSU to assist students financially?
So first up, I'd like to re-examine the resources offered to enhance and expand those resources to more students. There are many resources available to assist students financially if they meet certain requirements. And as you mentioned, I had the opportunity to oversee the Affordable Textbook Program, and I directly worked with students. And unfortunately, there were some students who were in need of financial assistance. However, they didn't qualify due to the limitations. Currently, students who receive financial aid, the grants, and the scholarships, middle class and veteran, qualify for a program. And students pay for $98 student activities fee and should be able to use resources that we have to offer with fewer restrictions. Additionally, I want students to be able to get assistance for their textbooks program and outside of vendors besides the bookstore. I would like to create a reimbursement program specifically for third-party textbook and code purchases required by the course from instructors. And additionally, I'd like to further promote the AS individual funding, which was on hold this past year, which enhances students' professional development. Additionally, per the AS bylaws, the Spartan Community Fund is available to the Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center, Pride Center, Gender Equity Center, Student Success Center, the Chicana X Latinx Center, the African American Black Student Success Center, and then the Undocky Spartan Resource Center, the Veterans Center. I'd like to collaborate with the Director of Intercultural Affairs to further enhance our community and educational experience outside of the classroom.
All right, so I had totally skipped over Andres for the first question, but I'm going to call on any rebuttals for Maritza's answer first. Do any candidates for controller have a rebuttal?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So I agree with the textbook program and how we should be able to use those funds at places other than the bookstore. But my question to you is, how did the COVID pandemic and remote learning affect the book voucher program?
Great question. So this past year, fortunately, the program was increased. It went from $100 to $200. And then additionally, on top of that, the program was just strictly for books. But over the past year, it has opened up for students to order from the Spartan bookstore online to purchase textbooks or rent textbooks, and then school supplies and technology needed for the classroom. So the program has improved over the past year, but I'd like to further improve it by opening up the program to more students.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Do any other candidates for controller have a rebuttal? Okay, I'm going to circle back and ask Andres the first question, and then Andres, I will also ask you your personal question after you answer that first one. So I'll read the question again. There is an allocation of $250,000 for student organizations to request funds in the AS budget. How do you plan on promoting student org funding to the student body?
So I think one of the ways I would promote student org funding would be reaching out to the different student orgs throughout the summer. So like asking them for a time to meet, like attending their meetings, sending them emails like regarding information, or even posting flyers on social media. As well as like early on in the semester, I'd also mass email all the student orgs again. And if possible, send out emails encouraging groups who in the past have not utilized the allocation. And so the email would just contain information about the resources and funding AS has available to them. And I would also attend the student org fairs, promoting the resources and available funding to student orgs.
Didn't realize I was muted. Your second question, Andres. Considering your previous experience as Vice President of Administration and Finance for the Residence Hall Association, what is a weakness you experienced in that position, and how will you turn that into a strength as AS Controller?
Yeah, so I think one of my weaknesses would be delegating tasks to my finance committee. And so I work on overcoming this weakness by delegating work to committee members as well as AS members based off of their skills, their availability and their willingness to grow. And by doing this, it'll allow me to focus on other projects that require my skill set and also maximize productivity. And by delegating work, overall, we reduce work stress and develop trust between me and my fellow AS members, as well as give others an opportunity to develop their skills and create an environment that allows everyone to grow.
All right, at this time, I will ask if any candidates have a rebuttal.
I have one.
Go right ahead.
So I totally agree that delegation is really important, and I really believe in the ability to work cross-functionally with different parts of AS, so that, for example, the marketing department would be clearly better at sending those emails and making those graphics in order to spread awareness. But my question to you is, having never served on our student government, what makes you stand out from other candidates running for this position?
Yes, I think one of the things that would make me stand out from candidates would be that Residence Hall Association itself is a pretty big organization itself. We represent all the on-campus students, like the residents, so that's usually 10,000 students every year. And within the roles I've served, I already have experience in managing a finance committee, as well as serving in a finance committee, so I know like both sides of it. And yeah.
All right, thank you both. I'm going to move on to Benz's question. After previously serving on 2 AS committees, what are some changes you would like to make in the way AS discusses budget policies?
So for those who don't know, I've been serving our students at San Jose State University ever since I was a freshman, and I'm a senior now. So I'm a proud Spartan through and through. And even though I've thoroughly enjoyed representing our students' concerns in the finance committee, I believe that we're missing an essential element. When it comes to discussing budget policies, I think it's essential to directly ask the students and organizations. We have so many diverse organizations that target specific interests. 13 representatives on the finance committee aren't nearly enough to holistically represent our students. And so as the controller, I want student organizations to submit surveys to voice their concerns. These surveys will be collected throughout the year, and this organized database will be taken into consideration when we develop the budget policies for the next year's students.
All right, at this time, do any other candidates have a rebuttal for Benz?
I guess the question I would have is, how would you encourage individuals within the student orgs to actually fill out those surveys, because I feel like that's one of the hardest parts of actually getting the information back from the survey.
Right. So when you apply for funding as a student organization, you have to go through the bylaws and make sure that your requests follow those laws. So obviously, when you go through those bylaws, you quickly realize that the $2,000 that you wanted for funding for costumes is limited to only $1,000. So let's say you feel like there isn't enough money being allocated for that part. Directly after submitting that funding request, you can have a survey where you enter in, hey, my student organization doesn't feel like we have enough funding for this part. Is this something you would consider to expand or adjust? And at the end of the year, we can go through all of that and discuss with our executive director to see if that's something we can accommodate.
All right. And the last question for Samia. You previously served on the SEC last year and have been a marketing officer at SJSU. How can you use your other experiences at SJSU to accurately review and understand financial needs?
Thank you for the question. So working with many organizations on campus, such as the ICE Service Desk, on dorms, the SEC, and being involved with various organizations and clubs and sororities, I gained valuable insights into people's life and their financial needs and status. I believe that these insights helped me gain a broader perspective, thus being a better spokesperson and representing student voices on a higher level. While I was working as the marketing officer for the SEC, I was also in charge of the giveaways. We had a budget at hand and had to allocate these funds in such a manner that the giveaway is exciting, fun, but also useful for students while promoting and staying under the budget. I also had to negotiate with the suppliers for the giveaways and crack the best deal. These experiences helped me shape my budgeting skills and management of finances. Apart from that, on a personal level, I started managing my living expenses since freshman year. I made budgets for myself. Initially, it was pretty rough, but as time went by, I learned a lot from practicing making budgeting sheets for myself, reading articles online, and the budget started being more structured. And I can proudly say that since then, I've never had any issues with my finances. With this skill set and experience, I feel that I'm ready to serve students as their next AS controller.
All right, thank you. Do any candidates have a rebuttal for that question? All right, thank you, candidates for controller. We are going to move on to the position of president. We have Anoop Kaur's opening statement.
Sorry, technical issues. I couldn't unmute. Hi, everyone. My name is Anoop Kaur, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm honored to be a candidate for AS president. Serving as your director of academic affairs for the past 2 years, it's been my privilege to learn the power of advocacy and inclusively voicing the concerns of all students. These past years, I've been able to prioritize and advocate for your educational needs in many spaces by working on efforts including ethnic studies, credit no credit, online proctoring, anti-Blackness, and systemic racism at SJSU. As president, I will work to represent your interests, champion maximum flexibility and support for students during this time, and improve our campus climate. If elected, I will continue to drive my advocacy efforts with my passion for social justice and equity, mobilizing our community and empowering your voice. I will continue to advocate to build a better, safer, and more inclusive community to unite all Spartans. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statement. I'm going to move on to your first question. The AS president oftentimes acts as a liaison between top SJSU administrators and the AS board and student body. How do you plan on dealing with grievances some students have over the way SJSU officials have performed?
All right, so as the AS president, it is my job to amplify the student voice. I'm more than willing to communicate the grievances SJSU students have. For example, when we were transitioning from the in-person space to shelter in place last March, there were some students who reached out to me mentioning how some professors were actually requiring them to come to campus and turn in assignments or take tests. And that obviously did not fall within student safety or county guidelines. So we acted quickly and passed a Sense of Senate resolution. And so that helped SJSU students to not be forced to come to class, and it included that professors should not require that of students, and we're able to stop that. But also I wanted to mention that it's important for the AS board and students to have direct face-to-face time to communicate their own narratives and experiences. In that direction, I would create spaces for that to happen. Although town halls have been not as successful as we've seen in the past, I would look for ways to make those forums as safe and inclusive as possible. For example, in the past, I've invited Provost Del Casino to the Academic Affairs Committee so college representatives and the campus community could ask direct questions to him. At the end of the day, Associated Students' mission is to serve students. So in this way, the student voice is empowered, and AS serves as the mechanism to promote student voices and our community change makers.
All right, on to your second question. You had mentioned in your opening statement, as well as your platform, that you are the outgoing Director of Academic Affairs. So with that being said, you've worked on efforts including credit, no credit, online proctoring, anti-Blackness, and systemic racism here at SJSU. How do you hope to build on those efforts and continue your advocacy work? How do you plan to handle relationships with reluctant administrators?
All right, so that's a great question. And during these times, we find ourselves in this newer and increasingly hybrid environment. So it's really important that we continue to focus on maximum flexibility and support for students, including those efforts you mentioned. And so over the past 2 years, I've been able to create frameworks addressing those efforts in letters, petitions, and resolutions to our campus community and beyond. My goal would be to continue working on the actionable items in those documents. For example, the resolution in honor of Gregory Johnson Jr. addressing anti-Blackness and systemic racism at SJSU outlines some items like establishing an AS scholarship, which we've been working on and will implement starting the next scholarship cycle. When writing this resolution, my colleague, Director Jones-Trammell, and I wanted to affirm the community voices that were already there and stand in solidarity with the campaign for justice on part of Gregory Johnson Jr. and the unnamed Black Spartans who have experienced anti-Blackness and systemic racism at SJSU. This resolution quotes as a mean to demonstrate organizational memory in the matter of addressing the past and moving onward to the present and the future, end quote. And so as president, I would build off that document and carry out the items you've mentioned. You also mentioned reluctant administrators. It's important to communicate why these issues are so essential to serving our students and improving the campus climate. I would encourage to work in tandem with them in the spirit of shared governance. With that knowledge, advocacy is a marathon and not a sprint. So ingraining these values in AS, a campus auxiliary, ensures that SJSU will continue to address it.
All right, thank you so much, Anu.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have the Director of Business Affairs. We have two candidates, Antonio Maldonado and Christopher Wong. We will start with Antonio's opening statement.
Hello, everyone. My name is Antonio Israel Maldonado, and I am a sophomore finance major here at San Jose State University. First things first, since I'm running for Director of Business Affairs, I just want to say my top priority is a student. I have a vision with the student, and I am sure that one day, if I am elected, my top priority is just take care of the students' finances, and not just that, but grow it, plant a seed in the minds of the students at San Jose State that will make their wealth grow in the future. And that's what I have for my opening statement.
All right, thank you. Christopher, with your opening statement. He is a participant, although I do not see his screen here. Oh, his laptop froze. So we are going to have Jalen pass off his laptop to Chris because Chris has technical difficulties at the moment. So we'll have a brief intermission as Chris gets that started for us. All right, Chris, are you ready for us?
Oh wait, okay, wait.
So we are just at your opening statement right now. If you need more time, feel free to let me know. That's okay too.
Hi, okay, yes, it is working. Okay. Hi, my name is Christopher Wong. I'm currently a first year business accounting major here at San Jose State University, running for Director of Business Affairs. I'm here currently running for this position as I'm an eager freshman looking to serve my campus and community. And from the limited experiences that I've had here at San Jose State so far, I've come to greatly appreciate my campus community. And I feel I've made numerous meaningful connections with my fellow Spartans. My goals are to facilitate the financial transparency amongst all the diverse perspectives on campus, as well as ensuring students are aware of the resources they have available to them on campus and where their money is going.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to move into the first question, which both of you will answer. I will start with you, Christopher. One of your responsibilities is to analyze, evaluate, and present to the board results of data acquired from students which reflect their needs. How will you work with AS departments to create changes based off of the data collected? You are muted. Still muted at the moment. You unmuted and then muted again.
Wait. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I apologize about that. But after a year of remote learning, the needs of students, I feel, have become more evident than previous years, as many of our students have struggled with their academics, finances, mental health, and other critical areas. With all this being, I will make sure that student success is a priority by using this data to allocate the appropriate funds to advocate appropriate funds to student success and ensure that the challenges students are currently facing become easier by strategically planning this budget with students at the forefront. My goal is to look at the previous budget and see where we can make adjustments with our ever-changing student populations and their needs. I will make student success a priority by using this data to allocate the appropriate funds to students, as well as ensuring that the challenges that these students are currently facing become easier. With the goal of, apologize about this. As with all this, I'm hoping to directly collaborate with the 7 AS departments and various student organizations to gain perspective in regards to students and also where these groups can help with student success and resources.
All right, thank you. Antonio, do you have a rebuttal or would you just like me to move straight into your answer to the question?
Let's just move it on.
Okay, I will ask you that same question then.
Okay. So one thing that I noticed just being a student here at San Jose State University is that there's not really much knowledge between the student and the body. To be honest with you, I didn't really know that this position was even a thing before I ran. But one thing that I will do to change that is, first off, I want to interact a lot more with students, and I mean that. I want to survey students very often and get their feedback to drive my election decisions. I will plan to work with every other position, but more specifically with the Director of Communications and the AS Controller, just to kind of not just work for the student, but also help the student. I think one thing about college that's really great is that it's full of young people. And one thing that I noticed is that, first off, everybody's going to have to deal with finances when they graduate. And a lot of people when they're 18 to 23 years old, it's a perfect time to start investing. And I feel like that's one thing that I will strive to do a lot more. I want to help the student navigate their investments better. I want them to, basically, I want them to know all the options they have when it comes down to investing. And because me as a minority, I honestly do not have access to, like, you know, going to making an index fund or like making generational wealth. And that's one thing that I know that I'm not the only one in the school. This school is one of the most diverse community schools there is, honestly, I'd say in the country. And I know there's a lot of people that are like me that don't really know how to navigate their way through finances. And that's one thing I want to change for good. And it's something that everybody's going to win from. If you think about it, the school will have a generation of just students who know how to invest and, you know, just navigate their finances. The student will create generational wealth, and I'm just here. So yeah, that's it.
Christopher, do you have a rebuttal to his answer?
No, I do not.
All right, Antonio, I will ask you your question, your next question. So your platform mentions that you have been treasurer of your fraternity. How do you believe this makes you a candidate well equipped for this position?
Okay. Well, first, I think it's pretty important to know, I actually, apart from being good with finances, you know, actually taking pride in being responsible and strict when it comes down to my spending, I actually really like to work with money and finances. It's something that I actually have a natural drive for. And as treasurer, first off, when I entered this house, one thing that a lot of you can ask people from my fraternity, I really started getting the ball rolling when it comes down to investing. I spend a lot of time doing that, and I start sharing it with the people from my own house, because I said at the end of the day, we all really benefit from this. And now I want to expand my vision with the school. I want the school to realize the stuff, all the resources they have when it comes down to investing, and not just that, but also saving their money. You know, when I first came here to San Jose State, I'm not gonna lie, you know, I was low on money. They didn't really have many options when it came down to eat. And that's one thing that I look back at, and it's something that I want to strive to better the situation for the students. Just save, basically, I want to prioritize the pockets of the students at San Jose State, and not just that, but the future, their financial futures. And that is my goal.
All right, thank you. Christopher, do you have a rebuttal, or would you like me to move into your second question?
Move on, please.
All right, your question is, how would you explain what this position entails to students who are uninformed, and how will you use your extracurricular experiences to fulfill those responsibilities?
Well, being a first-year freshman on campus myself, I believe that to the uninformed population, I could serve as a type of familiar and trusting, familiar face, as well as a trusting outlet of information. I would start by explaining how the position entails close work with the elected controller in drafting an efficient budget that is effective and advantageous for all students. With this, while also my duties allow me to preside over the operations committee, where there, I would chair this committee, ensuring that based off of the survey results, bridged with the established strategic plan, school programs and organizations are running as effectively as possible. And also I would
going to explain how I would serve as vice chair as the AS Finance Committee, a committee that overlooks and reviews budget requests while adhering to the budget guidelines and ensuring that money is available, giving the students money. Apart from this, I feel that my previous extracurricular experiences have allowed me to effectively do all of this, being a part of, though being a first year, being a part of a fraternity and living in the chapter house near campus, I'm forced to interacting with new faces on a daily basis, possibly more than how other first years, people that are in similar shoes to me might have.
All right, thank you for your answers, Christopher. Antonio, do you have a rebuttal for him?
No.
All right, thank you to the candidates for Director of Business Affairs. Next, we have two candidates for the Director of Academic Affairs. We will start with Chloe Kramer's opening statement. You are muted, Chloe.
My bad. Hello, Spartans. My name is Chloe Quinn Kramer. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a junior pursuing a bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in legal studies. As your Director of Academic Affairs, I want to serve as a point of contact for any and all of your academic needs and use my platform to uplift student voices. My main objective in running is to create an inclusive space where students feel confident in knowing that their education and academic concerns are being taken seriously. Some issues I feel strongly about addressing include the disconnect between students and faculty, difficulties that come with accessing resources needed for courses, systemic racism within the university and how it feeds into the academic culture at San Jose State, and harmful academic policies. If elected, I will work alongside college representatives, faculty, and all of you to improve the academic experience at San Jose State. If you feel that my goals resonate with you, be sure to vote for me so that we can work together to bring positive change to our campus community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next we have our second candidate, Anath Upaya.
Hello, Spartans. My name is Anant Upadhyaya, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in software engineering at Sjsu. As a director of academic affairs, my primary focus would be on affordable education for all.
You together a while.
Yeah, we have
different schedules. Your schedules, yeah.
I would primarily focus on affordable education for all and work towards the quality of education rather than the curriculum. I am more intended towards bringing on the latest demands on on-demand skills, which is required in the academic curriculum, so that it would help students to get their dream jobs and work on the policies with the college on how to make education a better way to communicate to students. Yeah.
All right, thank you both for your opening statements. Anath, I will start with you for question 1. As the university aims to transition back to in-person and hybrid classes, what unique challenges might this bring to a student body who are unfamiliar with on-campus academic culture, and what will you do to assist them?
Yeah, as a campus would basically transition from online to in-person, there would be certainly a number of challenges which the student body would face. But I would also like to mention that the online mode of education was quite new due to the pandemic, where other people are quite used to offline methods. The challenges would be, the first challenge it would be the health challenge, where students would basically have to maintain social distancing and fight against the coronavirus. And I would also there would be challenges related to how exams were conducted before and how exams would be conducted when we move to in-person. That is, from an online mode to an in-person mode of education, where I would strive on to make to bring out a balance between in-person exam versus an online exam, and the interaction between the teachers, which students generally tend to be lost when it is online. But I would try to work on this so that students would basically have easier way to communicate with the teachers. And also I would conduct some booths in the colleges where students can basically come out with their grievances, and also conduct some events where students can generally tell out their concerns on the academics, and the voice would be heard to everyone.
All right, Chloe, I will ask you that same question and I'll repeat it for the audience. As the university aims to transition back to in-person and hybrid classes, what unique challenges might this bring to a student body who are unfamiliar with on-campus academic culture, and what will you do to assist them?
Yeah, so I think there are going to be a lot of unique challenges that the student body is presented with. One of the first ones that comes to mind is just students feeling disconnected with their staff members and also their fellow peers. I know that for me personally, I can't put a face to a lot of the names that I see on Canvas every day. So it's really hard to feel a sense of community amongst my fellow Spartans. So how I would go about addressing this is following in the footsteps of the current Academic Affairs Committee through arranging events where students have opportunities to speak with their professors in an informal setting in order to establish relationships and just feel comfortable speaking with staff members. I feel like that would be a really great way to bridge the gap between professors and students. And whether these events be held in person or online is obviously determined by the pandemic. The second challenge that comes to mind is difficulties with advising in terms of lack of advising support. I remember feeling super overwhelmed with which classes to take, even when I had in-person advising. And I know that students are struggling right now to connect with advisors to gain clarification via Zoom. So I would propose arranging an advising workshop in collaboration with the 9 colleges where students can speak with advisors about general advising tips, in addition to boosting information that we currently have, such as my progress, my roadmaps, and doing this via online brochures, short video tutorials, or really anything so that students can feel somewhat prepared and knowledgeable about what courses they need to take. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chloe. We are going to move into your personal question. Director of Academic Affairs is the chairperson of the committee under the same name. Going back to in-person classes might mean a credit, no credit option is no longer available. How will you help students who might still struggle with hybrid classes?
For sure. So first things first, I think we're still in really extraordinary times where I think students should be given the option to choose between credit and no credit for their courses, especially given the fact that this will be the first time in a year that students will have to readjust to a new setting. So, this time last year, we were adjusting to being at home. And while we are adjusting to coming back onto campus this year, it's still a period of readjustment. So if credit, no credit can't be offered anymore by the university, I would love to work alongside those in the Academic Senate to discuss different ways to support students, whether it be through lenient add drop dates for courses, extending withdrawal deadlines, or really anything. I just think that this is a really important and necessary conversation to have in order to find a happy medium. Additionally, again, I'm all about boosting the current resources we have right now, like Peer Connections, for example. Awesome resource that helps students via tutoring, mentoring, and more, all for free. And I would love to focus on boosting programs like Peer Connections because I think some students aren't even aware of the fact that the resource is available. So I would also love to collaborate with other on-campus tutoring programs to ease the transition difficulties that students will face. Thank you.
All right, Anath, do you have a rebuttal for Chloe?
No, I don't.
All right, I will move into your second question. How do you plan on reaching out to students to hear their academic needs when some will be on campus and some will be off campus? What might that effort look like?
In order to listen to the academic needs of the students who are placed both in campus and some would be taking online, I would see to it that for the ones who are taking on-campus in-person classes, I would conduct some booths where students can basically come out with their academic needs and fill out different forms which are required, and I would adhere to whatever requirements are there. And as usual, conducting Zoom meetings and interacting with the students on social media platform for those who are taking online would help them in bringing out their needs through multiple Zoom meetings, which I plan to conduct every quarterly or every bi-weekly, depending on their needs. I also have some plans to conduct a survey where people can anonymously come out with their academic needs rather than giving out their names which is more generic in nature. And I would conduct some question and answer sessions for the students who are taking online through multiple platforms, and also conduct some in-person activities where students can come and ask whatever the questions they had, and how better the resources at SJSU can be utilized. And the other part is the advising team, which is currently available, but most of the students are not very aware of it. So I would try to reach out to them by through social media and also through placards on the college. Thank you.
Thank you. Chloe, do you have a rebuttal?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to the candidates of Academic Affairs. I'll move on to the last position, which is Director of Intercultural Affairs. And we will begin with opening statements from Ashley Guerrero.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Guerrero. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a third-year first-generation college student campaigning to be your AS Director of Intercultural Affairs. I'm campaigning for this position because I believe in the importance of building community with the different cultures we have on campus. I'm currently serving as a student at large for the AS Lobby Corps Committee, where I've had the opportunity to meet with local representatives to advocate for CSU budget reform, while also researching different legislation that affects students at San Jose State and at the CSU. I also currently serve as a student success leader with the Chicanx Latinx Center, where I mentor first-year freshmen with their transition into college, while also curating events for our Chicanx Latinx population. Through this position, I'm a part of the Solidarity Network, which is one of the, I will be a liaison to if elected for this position. So through this, I've been able to meet with the different program coordinators and also directors of these centers. One of the most important things for me that got me through my first 3 years at San Jose State was, oh, never mind, thanks.
No worries, thanks, Ashley. We're gonna move into Rodrigo Salcedo's opening statement.
Hello, Spartans. My name is Rodrigo Salcedo, pronouns he, him, his. I'm a third-year trans student from Las Positas College, majoring in psychology with a minor in Chicanic studies. I'm a first-generation college student and Army veteran. And the reason I am running to be your next Director of Intercultural Affairs is because last year, when I was serving as the Director of Communications at community college, I started to feel a sense of being a minority in my own community college. A good example of this is when I found out I was the only one out of the people serving on the board whose parents did not graduate high school, that did not have a college degree. I also found out that I was the first one in my family to now have a college degree. This is not limited to my immediate family, but also my extended family. I got really emotional when I found this out. So I really started to feel like a minority. Also working within the Veterans Resource Center, people didn't know I was a first-generation college student. So when my new perspective, this was my calling to really come to San Jose State and be a voice for all students and myself with my new perspective. Thank you.
All right, I will move into the first question. Although our campus is more diverse than many other CSUs, our student body is not immune to discrimination. What current policies will you uphold to protect students, and what new legislation would you like to implement? Ashley, I'll start with you.
Thank you. Yes, so I've been a student employee on campus for the last 3 years at San Jose State. I've also held 2 leadership positions within an org, and through that I had to fulfill the requirement of completing Title IX training. And every employee and student leader on campus is required to do this training. It encompasses learning about stalking, sexual misconduct, dating, and domestic violence. And if elected for this position, I would uphold current Title IX anti-discriminatory legislation and practices, while also hoping to expand who's required to do this training. I feel that more students should be aware of what Title IX really is and what it encompasses. I would also like to promote the Undocu Ally Training Program. This is done through the Undocu Spartan Resource Center. I feel like since we are a sanctuary school, it's really important to be there in community with our undocumented community, and to do this training would allow students to understand how undocumented students are being affected by legislation that may be put into place federally or on the state and or local level. So yeah, and that completes my answer to that question.
Rodrigo, I will ask you the same question, which I will just repeat for the audience. Although our campus is more diverse than many other CSUs, our student body is not immune to discrimination. What current policies will you uphold to protect students, and what new legislation would you like to implement?
Yes, so me being a brand new trans student to this campus, I had to go through not any more training, and it was a very useful training. Got to learn about sexual assault prevention and substance abuse. I realized that there wasn't anything focused on diversity and inclusion. It's very important that we have this for our campus community among our students because racism and discrimination does not it's not limited towards a campus that's pretty diverse compared to most CSUs. So my plan is to make sure we have workshops and modules directed to students so that they can get more educated in terms of diversity and inclusion. And I plan, with my previous experience being director of communications, I had the opportunity to communicate and network with BP executives that work on the campus. So I plan to work with the vice president of student affairs and the the CEO of the diversity, equity, and inclusion of office to get those initiatives in place and make sure the student voices are heard. And that's the answer to my question.
All right, thank you. Ashley, do you have a rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Rodrigo, do you have a rebuttal for her previous answer?
I don't.
Okay, Rodrigo, I will ask you your second question. While many campus community members pride our university on its diversity and inclusion, with 64% of students being of color, Black students are still underrepresented at about 3%. How can you help ensure the needs of underrepresented students are heard?
Yes, so also going back from my previous experience in student government, when I was director of communications for my second year, I didn't get that much perspective from Black students until that academic year. We had some Black student senators that came from Black student organizations. They were very vocal and they emphasized this, like that their voices were not heard and represented well within the student government. And some initiatives that they wanted to have in place was to create student committees so that we can all, find issues within our own communities, find which ones intersect, and so that we can all tackle it from there. So it's very important to hear voices from underrepresented communities. I know right now, currently with the AS bylaws, the Director of Intercultural Affairs does not have their own Intercultural Affairs committee. So my priority with this position, I plan to work with the Director of Internal Affairs to make sure the bylaws are amended so that this position can have their own committee in which the Director of Intercultural Affairs would chair and facilitate so that we can ensure all voices from underrepresented communities are heard. And also I will prioritize to get some transit policies in place for commuter students. I know the people of color community really rely on transits. So I want to make sure we reduce the cost and make it more efficient for students so that they can get involved on campus and make sure the voices are heard. Thank you.
All right, Ashley, do you have a rebuttal or would you like me to move into your question?
We can move into my question.
All right. Violence and xenophobia against Asian Americans have increased in the US, Bay Area, and San Jose since the start of the pandemic. With a 33% Asian American student population, our campus majority, how will you ensure these students feel safe on campus?
Thank you. So for me, I personally plan on supporting and assisting our Asian American student population, specifically the APITA community, which stands for Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Desi American students in their efforts to create a community resource center. I know there's a current task force that exists right now. So being like transparent in like the process of them creating their center, like, because I feel like personally right now, there's not a lot of transparency in that process. So ensuring that like this resource center is created and, just having those like events that these centers create within this center. I personally think that resource centers on campus really embody the diversity of our campus, and they provide resources for students in ways you couldn't imagine. Personally, for me, with the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center and also Mosaic, I was able to attend leadership retreats that they created, and I was able to learn more about my identity and the identity of other students on campus. I was also able to learn about some of the needs students have on campus and like something that they would like to see. Something that we talked about at the Leadership Today retreat last year was having mandatory diversity and inclusion training for faculty and staff. We feel that sometimes faculty and staff don't really know how to speak or address students. And I feel that if the PETA community did have a space like this, it would lift weight from cultural orgs from having to create their own events and providing that space for their own communities. So yeah, that completes my answer.
Rodrigo, do you have a rebuttal to Ashley's answer?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Yes, so I try to my best as a student to keep track of emails. And one email that I saw recently was that President Papazian wanted to get, the administration and faculty to get that mandatory diversity training. So, with the student perspective, if students think that there needs to be more diversity training for faculty and administration, what would you do to better vocalize this in case this is still an issue towards students?
Thanks for your question. I think advocacy is one of the biggest things that we could do to really see what we want implemented on campus. So if, for say, like the campus doesn't continue with pushing for this diversity and inclusion training, I think, working with other students within the AS board would, and advocating with them to push for this to get done, I think that's one of the biggest things that we as students can do, or like as a board of director could do. And yeah, that completes my answer.
All right, thank you both for the candidates of Director of Intercultural Affairs, and thank you to all of the candidates for answering these questions. At this moment in time, we're going to move into the audience Q&A. The questions will be asked in the chat here, so feel free to begin. They're going to be asked in the order that they are submitted. Questions can be directed to a single candidate or all candidates for a position. Candidates can ask questions, but cannot ask questions for the position they are running for or to candidates they are running against. Make sure to indicate who the question is for and being directed to. Candidates will have 45 seconds to answer audience Q&A. So we will let that come in just a couple of minutes. So please feel free to ask your questions in the Zoom chat. When you are asking questions, be sure to message it toward everyone. So that way, those who are involved with filtering and managing the questions can see your question and not just me. We will begin audience Q&As in 1 minute at 6:40. All right, we will begin with the first question. This is open to all candidates who would like to respond. So please indicate with a hand raising or in the chat if you would like to respond to this, candidates. The question is, as student leaders on this campus, you are who students look to for direction. How can you help bring more Spartan pride to this campus? It could involve wearing more Spartan gear or attending sport events or other ideas you may have. Candidates who would like to answer this question.
I have a response. Should I just go? Okay.
Yes.
So one thing that I think could be a really great way to bring more Spartan pride to the campus is through the use of social media. I think that a majority of our students use social media in one way or another. Like, for example, our entire election has relied a lot on social media to spread the word and to get engagement and whatnot. And I did want to applaud the SEC for doing such a great job with how they're doing things so far. So thank you for that. But I do think like utilizing Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of those things will really increase engagement with students. And also it is a great way to make students aware of the super awesome resources that we have on campus that some of the other candidates have also spoken about. So that's how I would go, or one of the ways that I think we can go about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Do any other candidates have an answer to this question? Nina, I don't think that your mic is working.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you now, yeah.
I apologize for my background, the sunlight is. But yeah, my answer to this question is kind of going also jumping off of Chloe's answer, having directors, set an example on their own personal Instagrams or even a word of mouth to their friends or organizations that are part of, right? The Instagram and Facebook has been widely used to advertise events and even activities and things that are going on within the board and during our board meetings. And it's important that each director, spread the word about this so that all Spartans can know what's going on.
All right, thank you, Nina. Any other answers from any candidates? Okay, I'm going to move on to a question for the candidates for controller. Given what you know about the role of controller, what is a responsibility that you believe should be added or taken away? Any candidate, feel free to begin. Candidates for controller, I might add.
Hello, so this is Ben's here. And the specific duties for the AS controller, they have so many committees that they have to be a part of, including not only the finance committee, but the operations committee, the executive committee, personnel committee, and that's a lot of responsibilities. But at the same time, I think it's really important that the controller be a part of all those committees. So I'd say to be added, responsibilities to be added should be none because we already have so much stuff to do. And since it's so important that we're part of all of that, I don't think any of that should be taken away. Although we can allocate some of those responsibilities to others in order to better spread the workload.
All right, thank you, Benz. Any other candidates for controller who would like to answer this question?
Yeah, I would like to respond. So yeah, I think definitely agreeing with what Ben said, that there is a lot of responsibility on the controller position. But in addition to that, I believe that there should be someone who takes the responsibility of just advertising and advocating for the finances on campus, and that we have such a resource to help students through their college journey. And I think that's one of the things I think should be added. But apart from that, I believe that the responsibilities are overall good as it is.
Thank you for getting I'm unmuted. Any other candidates for controller?
So I think the responsibilities given to the as a controller right now are sufficient enough. However, I think it'd be great if other board members were involved in the duties of what is done within like the finance committee, so that way they have a better understanding of how organizations are funded. So for example, if the director of communications would be interested in learning more about what we have to offer to the organizations through the funding, that'd be a great way for them to promote our services to the students better.
All right, thank you. Any other answers to this question? All right, I will move on to the next question. This is for Director of Communications. Do you have any ideas for ways to amp up our student engagement beyond giveaways and Instagram posts?
Yeah, so I mean, given our circumstances of virtual learning, there's not much that we can do at this current moment that isn't like it isn't done over the internet or virtually. However, I do want to communicate to different organizations on campus directly to also incentivize their own members to follow the AS social media accounts. However, once we can start engaging with students on campus and maybe do tabling on 7th Street, giving out like SJSU merch with the information needed to follow these social medias, and as well as distribute flyers and.
All right, thank you. This next question is for all candidates. Most of you have mentioned maintaining a diverse and inclusive campus. How will you emphasize the need for greater equity within SJSU?
I can go. Sorry, Nina, did you want to go first? I think I saw your hand up first.
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay. So I think that first and foremost, it's really important that we have conversations surrounding systemic racism and how it plagues higher education in order to understand. I'm going to turn off my background, actually. It's kind of messing with me. I hope you guys don't mind. Thank you. So yeah, I think it's really important that we first have these discussions because we can't identify the problems if we aren't even aware that the problems are there in the first place. So, I mean, the way I look at higher education is like a plant, right? So whenever you plant something, obviously it starts at the roots. And the truth is that higher education has, for most of its history, been really exclusive or exclusionary, to anyone who's not white, anyone who's not straight, anyone who's not cisgender, anyone who's not any of those things. Oh, I'm so sorry about the timing. I wish I could speak more on it, but I basically wanted to say that it's really important that we provide support for our students who have had these barriers placed in front of them for as long as we can remember. And it's one thing to offer them a seat at the table, but it's also important that we offer them support. So thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Nina, we'll move on to you.
Hello, I'm trying to find the question again. Can you repeat
I can repeat it, yeah. Most of you have mentioned maintaining a diverse and inclusive campus. How will you emphasize the need for greater equity within SJSU?
Equity is such a large problem that has so many intersectionalities within it that our university has continued to try to address there's so many different situations that our university has tried different solutions. Our students have also advocated for many different ways that our university can be more equitable in regards to all students, right? I think that as student leaders, it's important for us to listen to the students' needs and be a part of the planning process and local community events happening around campus, not just within AS, but in local communities. For example, participating in protests, rallies, being part of social media. Thank you.
Any other candidates with an answer to this question?
Yeah, I wanted to add, so I think it's really important to amplify the student voices that are already there. Many folks are already speaking up, and as board members, we can be the pathway to which they voice their concerns and their challenges. It's also important to recognize who doesn't have a seat at the table and offering their perspective when it comes to the policies, practices, and procedures that impact them.
All right, thank you. Any other candidates?
Yes, I was just gonna add and say that I think it's really important to research and find out where that equity gap exists. For example, with the Chicanx Latinx Center where I work at, we really look at the data and pinpoint where the need exists, and we created a program to help first year freshmen with their transition into college called Adelante. And, I think it's really looking at where the problem is and how you can address it, with what resources you can use to address it. So yeah, that completes my answer.
Other candidates before we move on? Okay, this next question is also for all candidates. As campus and society as a whole is constantly changing, how are you all going to ensure your style as an officer in your specific position is adapted to the needs of students during this time?
Yeah, I would like to go ahead with this. So again, as the question says that we keep on changing, the society keeps on constantly changing. There is a saying that change is the only thing which is constant. So in order to get needs of the students, I would basically prefer to take more surveys and take more feedbacks for a shorter period of time so that we can get to know how we need to improvise ourselves rather than taking it on a longer period where the change would have already occurred and you do not get ample space to make the change. So increasing the number of feedbacks and decreasing the duration of the feedback would definitely help. Thank you.
Other candidates? This next question is for the Director of Student Resources candidates. What are some ways that our committee should address the lack of awareness of resources on our campus?
Yes, so thank you, Nina, for this question. So some of the ways that the committee, I don't know if this is specifically for campus life affairs, but this could also be applied to any committee, is partnering with different organizations on campus, as well as reaching out to different programs on campus, for instance, like the orientation program, RHA, and then collaborating with the student union, because I know lots of commuter students hang out in the student union, and then we can also table on 7th Street so that students are aware of what resources we have. And then I also spoke on it a little bit during my debate, but also providing that resource tour for students so that they understand what resources we have on campus and where to find those resources, and then how to eventually, apply yourself to those resources so that they can benefit you. And ultimately make sure that students understand that they're not just a number here, that they are students, and we all as associated students and their voice are here for them.
Great, thank you, Jalen. This next question is for the Director of Academic Affairs. How will you work with the Academic Senate as a student senator to bring awareness to student concerns and challenges?
Okay, I can go first. I think outreach is really crucial, and I would definitely encourage students to come to any academic affair meetings to voice their opinions and concerns regarding the academic culture. With that, I would present these issues to the Academic Senate recommend policy recommendations to the academic senate chair. And honestly, I just think collaboration is key. And I want to make sure that I'm maintaining a good relationship with both the students and the faculty that I will be working alongside with. And ultimately, I just want to make sure that we aren't only having discussions about these concerns, but actually finding and executing legitimate solutions. Thank you.
Yeah, coming on to the answer to the question, what I would do as a director of academic affairs would be to basically get to know what the student concerns are. And also before going to the academic senate, I would basically prioritize the concerns based on the number of students who are facing the same issue. And then once the prioritization is done, I would like to go and address them in the order of priority, where the first priority would be the number of people who are facing the concern, and then move on to the next, so that we capture the important issues first and then move on to the next ones, which are lower priority.
All right, thank you both. As Brenda mentioned in the chat, in the interest of time, we will ask one more question. This question is for Ben's candidate for controller. Question reads, earlier in the debates, you mentioned the amount that Associated Students has within its reserve. Can you explain the importance of having reserve funds available?
All right, so this is something I learned from our chief financial officer during the time that I served on our finance committee. And that's that the philosophy of having a reserve is so that in case of emergencies, such as an earthquake or even a world pandemic, who knows, San Jose State University had a minimum of 6 months of regular operating expenses. So let's say we had no income for 6 months, we would still have that money saved so that SJSU can still be alive. In addition, we also use this reserve kind of like a bank account where we can transfer funds to take care of unforeseen maintenance of things, such as our childhood development center or our commemorative structures. And my problem with it is that I feel like $11 million is a little too much, especially after we have gone through a world pandemic where we expected our revenues to decrease significantly. It still ended up that we had about the same revenue. So like we have gone through a natural disaster and our reserves weren't touched. So yeah.
So we still have a few minutes, so I'll proceed actually with the next question, which is for all candidates. How do you plan on working with and not for the university to focus on student needs?
I can maybe touch on this.
Sure, go ahead, Caden.
Yeah, given my time and experience working in AS is, the position that I'm now rerunning for, you are put in a lot of opportunities where, you might be inclined to think that administration is always working in tandem with AS. But sometimes that's not true, because sometimes the interests of students is different from the interests of administration. So the key with that is reaching out to administration, giving them your point of view and what you believe that students want to see, and collaborating with them, but not compromising any of your things that you want to see changed in effort to perhaps maybe quell or not step on the toes of administration, because at the end of the day, there are certainly going to be instances where the interests of students and the interests of admin are going to differ.
Nina, do you have an answer?
Yes. Going off of what Dr. Walker just said, as board of directors, it's a privilege to be in these spaces, but also for us, it's a responsibility for us to remember why we're in these spaces is to advocate for students, right? And of course, that there are going to be instances where you're the only minority in the room, you're the only student in the room, right? In my experience, that's what I've dealt with, and it's really just to always remember, that you have been elected in this position by students for students. Just to remember that.
All right. Any other candidates with answers?
Yeah, basically, I would consider university and the students as one part rather than two independent part because each of them cannot exist with the other. So it is always important to work with the university and so that a sense of inclusiveness would come into the leaders who are contesting. And also when we are considering an inclusive atmosphere, we tend to work on the students' needs. And would actually help them in a better way. So it's basically the mindset which has to be inculcated so that we always work with both the students and the university to bring the best of both worlds.
All right. Any other candidates with an answer to this question?
Yes, I can go.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I feel like the board of directors, the student board of directors, yields to the voice of the student population, and as long as that underlying factor is always remembered in the back of the head of everybody, then I feel that regardless of what decisions we're making, whether it be that conflict with the interests of us personally, maybe the school, we always have to remember that we are serving the greater population, which is the students here at San Jose State.
Thank you. Remaining answers?
Yes. Well, just first things first, we are the associate students. So first and foremost, I came in, to work on behalf of the students, to hear what they have to say, to make myself available. And I imagine I'm going to butt heads with administrations very often. And like Director of Legislative Affairs Walker says, sometimes you do work not in tandem with the administration. But really, first and foremost, I want to try to find a middle ground. That'll always be my objective. And I am sustainability, and I imagine that it be not a long-standing station. There's a lot of things that I need to personally work on, but I'm prepared to do so, and I will always have the students at hand first. I see you.
Thank you. Any other answers? So we do have two final questions. I know that we are past 7, but I want to go ahead and give the candidates for these two questions the opportunity to answer. So the next question is for Director of Sustainability. Taking into consideration that SJSU has a sizable population of low-income students, how will you guide these students in living more sustainably when they might not have access nor resources to do so?
Well, this comes back into one of my main campaign policies where I want to make sure that the standing resources of this office are more readily available. I know that the community campus garden has plenty of volunteer experiences as well as informative programs where students can come and learn the process of growing and nurturing your own plants. I also know that the Office of Sustainability also offers internships for students that are interested. But whether they might not have access nor the resources to do so, I believe that it's all about just making sure that they're informed and aware of those resources because they are available.
All right, thank you, Marco. And our last question is for the candidates of controller. There was a mention of reserves. May candidates expand on their plan on the use of reserves for emergency situations or others, such as recently, when the SJSU administration asked the board of directors for funds to help with their budget deficit? All right, any other candidates for controller who would like to answer this question? Let me know if you'd like me to repeat it. Okay, I think.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Oh, okay. So first of all, before I answer this question, it's a little similar to the last one. So can I just get some clarification on what exactly they're asking?
Yes, it is asking you to expand on the use of reserves for emergency situations, especially considering how SJSU administration had to ask the board for funds to help with their budget deficit during the pandemic. So what is your plan on the expansion of it?
So there is already a plan in place, and this is a good question because the budget is something that we've been working on for the last month or last 2 months, so it's really fresh in my memory. And so the use of the reserves is so that, let's say, at the beginning of every year, we have a certain budget, and if the department needs more funding, then we can take that amount of money out of the reserves and give it to the department. And it's as simple as that.
Any other candidates with answers to this question? Candidates for controller.
Hi, yes. So as to answer the, I guess to answer the way I'm interpreting it is if whether or not we would, as if we were controller, if we were to give the funds to the university, I wouldn't be for helping the university for their budget deficit. The reason why is because the AS fee collected is for the purpose of helping fund the programs put on by AS and the students. So the funds should be returned to the students to help them with any with the resources that we have provided. And again, the reserved is used for the purpose of any emergencies within AS.
All right, thank you. Other candidates?
May I rebuttal?
Yes.
So we already have so much, we have $11 million in our reserves, and even the chief financial officer of our university has stated that maybe we should look into spending this amount of money somewhere else to improve our university and the lives of our students. In addition, AS fees that are collected from our students, sometimes those aren't all spent in 1 year, and so those go into the reserves. So if you think about it that way, if we were to take money out of those reserves and put it back into the university, then that would still be using the AS fees that we've collected for the students of San Jose State University.
Thank you, Ben. Other answers? Okay. With that, all of the questions have been asked. I would like to take the time to remind those of you who are candidates to please fill out the candidate profiles Google form that the Spartan Daily needs to profile you all. I cannot speak anymore. And again, thank you to everyone on AS, candidates, and audience members, and thank you for allowing me to be the host and moderator. And with that, I will pass it off to Vivian.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I would like to conclude our event. Thank you all so much for participating and those for tuning in. Candidates, you all did a wonderful job. So be sure to pat yourself on the back. I want to congratulate you all for coming this far, and I want to encourage you to still finish super strong. We also understand that these times are very difficult, so we appreciate all your efforts throughout the entire virtual election process. Please continue to use your social media to promote yourself and to also promote voting. So voting has already begun today at 7 p.m. and it will end on April 15th at 8 a.m. And before we wrap it all up, I would really like to say a big thank you to our SEC member advisors and the Spartan Daily for making this incredible event possible. So a few of us will be continuing to remain on this Zoom to answer any questions that you still may have. But with that being said, debates are finally over. Please don't forget to vote, and thank you all so much for your participation.